Welcome to this short tutorial on using fixation pins. The first part of the discussion will be dealing with Blue Sky Bio pins, part number PIN, and then we'll move on to creating custom pins if you're using a pin from another manufacturer. In this example, the nerve has been marked, the model aligned, and the implant already placed. Before we go further, although it might be obvious to some, I want to point out that the model surface must be present in the location where you want the pin to attach, otherwise it cannot be included into the surgical guide. We begin by clicking on the Add Implant icon located on the main toolbar, then click on the Pin tab. You will notice that the dimensions are already given, diameter of 2.17, length 20.8, and a handle length, the part sitting outside of the surgical guide, of 5 millimeters. The software will also determine which guide tube and drill is needed automatically. Click OK. The pin can be added to the 2D or 3D panels, however we'll start in the 3D for this demo. Move the cursor to the approximate position where you want the pin and left click. You can left drag the image to rotate. You can left drag on the pin itself. You can use the arrows up or down, and you can use the 3D widgets in order to angle by left dragging on them and rotating. Observe the movement of the pins and placement in the 2D images as well. For fine-tuning the movements, you can also use the keyboard up, down, left, and right for nearly pixel by pixel movement. You can also use the 2D images where the pin is located by, in this case, in the cross sections. I'll zoom out a little bit. You can drag the pin and rotate the widget as well. In the implant list panel, if it's not open, go to the panels menu or panels toolbar and click implant list, or simply double click on the implant. Click on the drill guide to visibility checkbox under pin so the tube becomes visible in the plan. Otherwise, the guide pin opening will not be shown on the surgical guide. The parts panel can be opened in order to see the parts that would be needed for the pin, namely the pin itself and the drill and the accompanying metal cylinder. In this case, tube 231, drill T22 short. At this point, you can continue designing the surgical guide by drawing the curve, editing it, and creating the surgical guide. In this next section, we'll discuss using non-Blue Sky Bio pins. Before we continue, you must note that you must be in advanced mode. If you click in the mode drop-down menu, you'll see if you're in normal, switch to advanced. To place a custom pin, click on the Add Implant icon, then click on the Pin tab. To place a custom pin, click Custom. Set the diameter field to that of your manufacturer's pin. We will use 2.05 for this example. You will also need to know the diameter of the manufacturer's drill. For this example, we will use 2.1 millimeters, and we'll discuss more on this in a moment. Set length 0 to the length of the active part of the pin from the tip until the handle. This corresponds to the blue portion of the diagram, the part that enters the bone. We will set it for 19. Set length 1 to be the length of the handle of the pin. We will use 8 in this example. Click OK to accept. Then move the cursor to the area where you want to place the pin. Left click to set it. Left drag to rotate the 3D image, and you can bodily move by left dragging the pin. You can use the blue arrows to move the pin, the red and the green on different axes, making sure to stay within the confines of the model. Left drag on the 3D widgets to position the pin as needed. To fine-tune the movements, you can use the keyboard arrows up, down, left, and right for more detailed movement. In the implant list, click on the pin's guide hole visibility checkbox to make the guide hole cylinder visible. At this point, we'll need to find the proper dimensions to set the guide hole to accommodate the guide tube that will be used for this portion of the drilling procedure. To select the corresponding guide tube, open your browser to blueskyplan.com. Click on Components, Metal Cylinders, All Guide Tubes, and scroll down. As we mentioned before, the diameter of the drill we'll be using is 2.1. So for this, we'll need a guide tube with an inner diameter a tenth of a millimeter larger, that being 2.2. Here we have tube 22 with an inner diameter of 2.2, an outer diameter of 3.2, a total height of 5. 1 millimeter of that 5 is the lip which sits outside of the surgical guide, with 4 millimeters penetrating the surgical guide. And we'll apply that to the guide tube section for the guide hole diameter, height, and offset. For the guide hole diameter, remember we're using a tube with an inner diameter of 2.2. The outer diameter is 3.2, but we're going to add 1/10 of a millimeter to accommodate the tube going into the surgical guide. So we'll set this at 3.3. For the height in the software, we want that to be equivalent to the portion of the tube entering into the surgical guide, which we said was 4. 4 happens to be already placed, so we're okay there. The offset is calculated by the software automatically at -1 to compensate for the 1 millimeter lip, which would have reduced the length of the drill to create the osteotomy for the pin. Once we accept, we'll OK, since this is a custom pin, and at this stage we'd be ready to create the surgical guide. And remember, for this particular case, we would be needing tube 22, which could be ordered directly from the website.